A black woman in a gold dress, walking into the most powerful business gala in Seoul. Engagement ring on her finger, the whole room turning to look, not because she's with someone famous, but because of who she is. Because 6 months ago her name was on the cover of Forbes Korea. Because the company she built from nothing just closed a $30 million deal. Because she gave a speech tonight that made 3 venture capitalists cry. Now picture the man in the corner of that same ballroom, champagne glass in his hand, face going white, because the woman in the gold dress is his ex-girlfriend, the one he dumped by text message, the one his mother called not suitable, the one he told. And I need you to hear this. He told her she was too poor for his family. And the man on her arm, his name is Choi Hyun-sik, the one person on earth that this man has spent 3 years trying to destroy, his most dangerous rival, his worst nightmare, and that man is about to become his family. Now here is the twist that nobody saw coming, and I promise you, by the end of this story, your jaw will be on the floor. Clara Mensah knew all of this before she walked through those doors. She chose to walk in anyway. Let me tell you exactly how we got here. His name was Park Yi-won, and the last real thing he ever said to Clara, not by text, not through his mother, not with silence, the last real thing he said to her face was this: "My family needs someone who fits our world." She had been with him for 4 years. 4 years of learning Korean so she could speak to his grandmother. 4 years of sitting through Sunday dinners where his mother asked questions that were designed to sound polite and land like daggers. 4 years of watching him stare at his plate every time his family said something that should have made him stand up and didn't. 4 years. And she got 36 words in a text message. "I don't think we're compatible anymore. My family needs someone who fits our world. I'm sorry." She was standing outside the restaurant where they were supposed to celebrate her promotion. She had flowers. She had bought them herself because she was that kind of woman. She didn't wait for people to celebrate her. She celebrated herself. She read that message 4 times in the rain. The flowers bled red dye onto her white coat. She still has that coat. She kept it on purpose. But here is what nobody knew. Here is the thing that makes this story different from every other heartbreak story you've ever heard. Clara didn't go home and fall apart. She went home, poured herself a glass of water, not wine water, she wanted to think. Clearly sat down at her kitchen table, opened her laptop, and typed 4 words at the top of a blank document. What do I build? Because Clara Mensah had been sitting on an idea for 2 years. An idea she kept shrinking, kept delaying, kept deciding wasn't the right time for because she was too busy trying to be the right woman for someone who was never going to deserve her. The breakup didn't break her. It freed her. And what she built with that freedom is the reason we're in this ballroom tonight. Watching Park Yi-won's hand shake around a champagne glass he can barely hold. This is the story of what happened in between. Clara Mensah grew up in Accra until she was 12. Then her family moved to London. Then, eventually, to Seoul, when her father took a position as a senior engineer at a telecommunications firm. She was 22 when she met Yi-won at a language exchange cafe in Hongdae. He was practicing his English. She was practicing her Korean. They traded mistakes and laughed at each other, and by the time the cafe closed, they had exchanged numbers, and somehow she already knew this was going to complicate her life. She was right. Yi-won was not just any guy. He was the second son of Park Sung-jin, the founder of Park Tech Industries, mid-tier electronics, solid reputation, serious money. Not dynasty money, but the kind of money that comes with expectations, suits, and mothers who have opinions about who their sons marry. For the first year, none of that mattered. They existed in their own world. Late night. Ramyeon walks along the Han River, him teaching her how to read Hanja, her teaching him how to dance, badly, joyfully, without caring who watched. He told her she was the most interesting person he'd ever met. She believed him. The problems started slowly. A comment here, a look there. His mother, Mrs. Park, began asking careful questions about Clara's family, her father's job title, their property, their plans. Clara answered honestly. Her father was comfortable, not wealthy. They rented, they saved, they worked hard. That apparently was the wrong answer. She's very charming, Mrs. Park told Yiwon, in a conversation Clara was not supposed to hear, but did. But charming doesn't protect the family name. Yiwon said nothing. That silence, Clara would replay it for months. Not what his mother said, what he didn't say back. Still, she stayed, because when it was just the two of them, he was tender and funny and present. He held her face when he kissed her. He remembered everything she ever told him. She thought that kind of attention was love. She didn't yet understand that attention and courage are different things. The beginning of the real end came at a family dinner, 8 months before the text message. Yiwon's elder brother, Yimin, had just announced his engagement to a woman from the Kim conglomerate family, a merger dressed as a marriage. The table was glowing, toasts were made, and then Mrs. Park looked at Clara across the table with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and said, "And what about you two? Clara, your family, what do they do exactly?" The table went quiet. Clara set down her chopsticks. "My father is a senior engineer at KT Corp. My mother runs her own tailoring business back in Accra." A pause. "How lovely," Mrs. Park said, and then she turned away. Clara looked at Yiwon. He was looking at his bowl. She drove home alone that night. In the following months, Yiwon became a different person in slow motion. He stopped bringing her around his family. He stopped talking about the future. He started using the word complicated a lot. She asked him directly, 3 times, what was happening. 3 times he said, "Nothing," and held her hand like that answered the question. The 4th time she asked, he didn't hold her hand. He sat across the table in their regular cafe and he said, "My father wants me to be more intentional about who I'm building a life with." "And what does that mean?" "It means they need someone who understands our world, our level." "Your level," she repeated. "Clara, say it clearly, Yiwon. Don't make me interpret your family's insults for you. Say what you mean." He looked down. "They think the gap between our backgrounds is too wide, that it would cause problems, long term." She stood up. "Then they should be having this conversation, not hiding behind you." "I'm not hiding." "You are. You have been for a year. Every time your mother makes a comment, you stare at your food. Every time your father asks a question designed to diminish my family, you laugh like it's nothing. And now you're sitting here telling me I'm not at your level. You." She picked up her bag. "You couldn't find your level with a compass and a map." She left. He texted her 6 days later. "I don't think we're compatible anymore. My family needs someone who fits our world. I'm sorry." 36 words. 4 years. Grief is strange. It doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in pieces in the middle of the night when you reach for someone who isn't there, in the morning when you make coffee for 2 by accident, in the supermarket when you see his favorite brand of chips and you stand in the aisle for too long, and a store employee asks if you need help and you say no. You're fine, you're absolutely fine, and then you go home and you cry until your whole body hurts. Clara cried. She let herself cry. Her best friend, a Korean-Nigerian woman named Somi, moved into her apartment for 2 weeks and fed her, and told her every terrible truth about Yiwon that she'd been keeping politely silent about. Her father called from London every evening. Her mother sent her a voice note in Twi that was so full of warmth and righteous anger that Clara listened to it 17 times. And then, slowly, something shifted. It wasn't anger exactly, it was clarity. She had spent 4 years making herself smaller for people who were never going to be Grateful for it, she had apologized for her background, softened her opinions, swallowed her reactions, and it still wasn't enough, because it was never going to be enough. The problem was never her. The problem was that they needed a problem to exist, and they had chosen her as it. She enrolled in a financial modeling course, then a second one. She had a business idea she'd been sitting on for 2 years, a platform connecting African textile artisans directly with high-end Korean fashion buyers, cutting out the middleman that was eating most of the artisans' profits. She'd been afraid it was too ambitious, too niche, too complicated. She stopped being afraid. She built it. Clara, this is either the best idea I've heard this year, or I need more coffee to understand why I think that. The woman speaking was Jae-yeon, a senior partner at a boutique investment firm in Gangnam. She had agreed to a 15-minute meeting as a favor to a mutual contact. It had been 40 minutes. The platform is called Kente & Co., Clara said. We've already onboarded 14 artisan cooperatives across Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal. We have letters of intent from 3 independent Korean fashion houses. What we need now is bridge capital to build out the logistics and payment infrastructure. What's your ceiling? Conservative projection, 12 million USD revenue by year 3. If we expand into Japan and the EU in the second phase, and we will, 30 plus. Jae-yeon looked at her over her glasses. How old are you? 26. How long have you been working on this? Building, 8 months. Thinking about it 2 years. What stopped you for 2 years? Clara smiled. Someone told me I wasn't at the right level. Jae-yeon put down her coffee. I'm going to introduce you to someone. His name was Choi Hyun-sik. 34, self-made. The founder of CHC Capital, a private equity firm that had developed a reputation for backing unconventional bets that paid off spectacularly. He had grown up in Busan, the son of a fisherman, and he had built his fortune with a combination of ferocious intelligence, physical fearlessness, and an allergy to the word no that bordered on neurological. He was also, Jae-yeon mentioned carefully, not universally liked in certain circles. Which circles? Clara asked. The ones that think success should come with the right last name. Clara nodded. I like him already. Their first meeting was supposed to be a pitch. It lasted 4 hours and covered the business model, the political economy of West African textile trade, the gaps in Korean import regulation, the history of kente cloth, the ethics of cultural commodification, and somewhere in the middle of hour 3, their respective theories on what makes a person decide to stop being afraid. He didn't offer her funding that day. He said, I need a week to think. She said, take 2, I want you sure. He called her in 4 days. I'm in, he said, full seed round, and I want to be more involved than a typical investor. Define involved. Advisor role, monthly strategy sessions, and I want to meet the artisan cooperative leads before we finalize the contract. She blinked. You want to go to Accra? I want to understand what I'm backing. Don't you want an investor who does? She was quiet for a moment. Yes, she said, I do. They went to Ghana together 6 weeks later. She had been nervous about it, not about the work, but about him seeing where she came from, the aunt's house in Accra where she'd spent her childhood summers, the market where her mother's seamstresses worked, the cooperative in Kumasi, 3 hours by road, where women with nimble hands turned thread into something that museums in New York and Paris had tried and failed to replicate. She waited for him to be polite and distant, the way wealthy people sometimes were in places that made them uncomfortable. He sat on a wooden stool in the cooperative workshop for 2 hours, asking questions and listening. One of the older women showed him how to finger test the quality of hand-woven cloth. He practiced it badly and laughed at himself, and she corrected him and he practiced again. By the end, he had it. On the drive back, Clara said, "You didn't have to do all that." "I wanted to," he said. "This is the foundation. If I don't understand the foundation, I don't understand what I'm building." She looked out the window at the orange dust and the roadside stalls and the enormous sky. Most investors look at spreadsheets. Most investors miss things. She turned to look at him. He was looking at the road, but something in his jaw was set in a way that told her he wasn't just talking about business. The feelings crept in the way all inconvenient feelings do, through small doors left open by accident. The way he texted her articles at odd hours because something reminded him of a thing she'd said. The way he argued with her, cleanly and directly without the passive aggression she'd come to expect from people who disagreed with her but didn't want to say so. The way he once waited 30 minutes outside a meeting that ran long and didn't mention it, just handed her a coffee and said, "You looked like you'd need this." She tried to keep it professional. She had a company to build. She could not afford the distraction or the complication or the particular kind of heartbreak that came from falling for someone whose orbit you couldn't leave without burning everything down. She sat herself down one evening and made a pro-con list. The pro column got very long. The con column had one entry. What if he's just another man who seems different until he is? She stared at that for a long time. Then Hyunsik called her. "I have a question," he said, "and I want you to tell me the truth. Always. Do you feel what I feel? Because I need to know before I say anything else and make this strange between us." Clara was quiet for a long time. "What do you feel?" she asked. "That I have never in my life met anyone like you. That every conversation we have makes me want the next one. That going to Accra with you was the best 2 weeks of my life, and not because of anything I saw, because of who I saw it with." She closed her eyes. "Yes," she said, "I feel what you feel." "Okay," he said, and the relief in his voice was so real and so unguarded that it undid the last of her defenses. "Then let me take you to dinner, not a meeting, dinner. There's a difference. With you, I have to specify." She laughed, the kind of laugh that starts in your stomach and surprises you. "Fine. Dinner." They dated for 7 months before he proposed. He didn't do it at a restaurant or on a rooftop or in front of a crowd. He did it at her apartment on a Sunday afternoon when she was wearing paint-stained jeans and her hair was wrapped and she had flour on her cheek from attempting badly to make her grandmother's chin-chin. He came in with groceries, took one look at the kitchen. Disaster, helped her clean it up, and then while she was standing at the sink with her back to him, he said, "Clara, I want to spend my life in kitchens like this with you." She turned around. He was already on one knee. The ring was not ostentatious. It was a gold band set with a small, brilliant-cut diamond and a thin inlay of kente-patterned enamel. He'd had it custom-made. "I know who you are," he said. "I know where you come from and I know where you're going, and I want both, all of it. Will you let me be part of it?" She was crying before he finished the sentence. "Yes," she said, "yes." Which brings us back to the ballroom. The gala was the annual Innovators Investment Summit, the most attended, most photographed event in the Seoul business calendar. Hyunsik attended every year. This year, Clara was on the official program. She was delivering a keynote address on ethical investment in African creative economies. She had not thought about Park Yi-won in 4 months, not deliberately avoided, genuinely moved past. He had faded from grief to memory to a story she sometimes told, with a wry smile about the things that break you before they redirect you. She had not expected him to be there. But there he was, standing near the bar with a woman she didn't recognize, pretty, quiet, the kind of careful that people perform when they're being watched. He saw Clara. The moment she walked in, she knew because his posture changed completely, A full-body freeze, like a man who has stepped on something and is hopping very hard it was. What he thinks. She kept walking. Hyun-sik's hand was warm at her back. You okay? He murmured. Yes, she said, and meant it. The keynote went brilliantly. She spoke for 20 minutes without notes, held the room. Through 3 different emotional registers, and got a standing ovation. She shook hands and took photos, and by the time she made it back to Hyun-sik's side, she was buzzing with the particular electricity of having done something exactly right. You were extraordinary, Hyun-sik said. I know, she said, and he laughed. And then Yi-won was there. He had crossed the room. She didn't know what she expected, maybe for him to stay in his corner and pretend he hadn't seen her, the way people do at these events, the careful, invisible boundary, but he crossed it. Clara, he said. She turned. Yi-won. A pause. His eyes moved to the ring, to Hyun-sik, back to her face. You look well, he said. I am well, she said. Another pause. I heard about Kente and Co., he said. It's impressive. Thank you. He stopped, started again. I've thought about calling. But you didn't. No, he looked down. I didn't know what to say. Yi-won, she said calmly. You don't have to say anything, really. I mean that without any kind of edge. He looked at her. Something complicated moved across his face. Are you happy? She glanced at Hyun-sik, who was giving Yi-won the kind of steady, neutral look that communicated everything without saying a word. Yes, she said, I genuinely am. Yi-won nodded. He's the breath. He's a good man from what I know. He's the best man I've ever met, she said simply. Another nod. Then, I'm sorry, Clara, I was a coward, I know that. I think I knew it then. And did it anyway, and I'm not proud of it. She looked at him for a long moment. The rain, the text, the bouquet that bled red, 4 years folded into 36 words. I know, she said, and I forgave you a long time ago, not for your sake, for mine. He held her gaze. Then he nodded once, turned, and walked away. Hyun-sik waited until he was gone. That was done, she said. He took her hand. Done, he agreed. There's a thing people say about heartbreak, that it changes you. What they do. Always say is how it changes you. It can make you harder, smaller, more afraid. It can make you audit yourself for flaws and find too many and spend years trying to correct them for people who were never paying that kind of attention anyway. Or it can make you still. That's what happened to Clara. The grief went through her like a fire, and what it left behind wasn't ash, it was bedrock, a certainty about who she was, where she came from, what she was worth, not in the currency of someone else's family expectations, but in her own measure. She didn't need to be at someone's level. She built her own floor. Kente and Co. went on to close a Series A round, funding 14 months after launch. They expanded to Japan in the second year, exactly as projected. The cooperative in Kumasi hired 40 additional artisans. Clara's mother flew to Seoul for the launch event and wore a dress made from cloth woven by the very women her daughter had built a company to protect. She cried. Clara's father shook Hyun-sik's hand with the particular grip of a man who has assessed another man and found him worthy. Hyun-sik squeezed Clara's hand under the table, and she squeezed back, and neither of them said anything, because they didn't need to. As for Park Yi-won, he married the woman from the gala. A good family, his mother approved, everything aligned. Whether he was happy, Clara genuinely didn't know. She stopped tracking it. Some stories don't need an ending beyond their own beginning. And his story was never really hers to finish. The only story she needed to finish was her own. And it was just getting started. If this story hit something in you, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, were the right level, weren't what someone's family needed, I want you to sit with this. The people who couldn't see your value were not qualified judges. They were looking for a mirror that reflected them. You were offering something far more interesting. Stay with that. And if you want more stories like this, love, betrayal, ambition, the kind of comebacks that don't require revenge because the living well is the whole thing, subscribe right now. Hit that bell so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have said to Yi-won at that gala? I want to know. The best responses get pinned. I'll see you in the next story.